Hello, everyone. Thank you all for coming back to the Love and Betrayal channel. Today, I have a new and quite interesting story to share with you. The man I almost remember. They told me I was lucky. Surviving a car crash that should have ended my life, waking up in a private rehabilitation center, no broken bones, no burns, just no memory. A clean slate, they said. But what they didn't tell me was that a clean slate feels more like a hollow shell. Every morning I woke up staring at a ceiling I didn't recognize. Every time I looked in the mirror, I saw a face that felt both mine and not mine. And no matter how many times the nurses smiled, how often the woman named Dr. Keller reminded me, "You're safe now, sweetie." I never felt safe because something inside me whispered, "This isn't your life." They called me Alina Hart. Apparently, that was the name they found on my ID. My address no longer existed, burned down months before the accident. No known family, no records of marriage, just me floating. Alina Hart. But every time someone said the name, it itched inside my skull, like it wasn't mine. Not really. 6 months after the accident, I moved into a quiet neighborhood outside the city. Dr. Keller arranged everything: an apartment, a part time job at a bookstore, therapy. I tried. I tried to be this Alina woman. I smiled. I nodded. I folded pages and drank chamomile tea like a person who had made peace with forgetting. But then he walked in, and everything unraveled. It was a Tuesday afternoon, raining lightly. I was restocking the romance shelf when the bell over the door jingled. He stepped in, tall, dark hair, sharp cheekbones, a charcoal coat clinging to him from the rain. I didn't look up right away, but when I did, my breath caught. Not because he was handsome, not because he smiled, but because my body reacted before my brain could process anything. My knees locked, my heart skipped, my fingertips trembled against the book in my hand. He walked toward me, not like a stranger, not like a customer, like he knew me. "Excuse me," he said, voice deep and smooth. "Do you have the new Margaret Wilkins novel?" I blinked, then nodded, mechanical. Yes, just released this morning." He smiled. "You always were good with books." My head snapped up. "What?" He looked surprised for a second, just a flicker, then recovered. "Sorry, you just remind me of someone I used to know." I stared at him. Every instinct in me screamed. "You know this man. You've touched this man. You've whispered to this man in the dark." But my memory? Empty. He introduced himself. Damien Wolfe. Even his name rang like a broken bell inside my chest. He bought the book, thanked me, and as he left, I caught him glancing back. Not like a man admiring a pretty woman, but like someone making sure a ghost was real. That night, I couldn't sleep. I Googled him, and there wasn't much. A few vague business listings and some charity galas, one blurry photo of him with a woman who looked like me. Same acid change. Yes, same lip, same posture, except she was wearing a white dress, and he was sliding a ring onto her finger. I printed the photo, brought it to Dr. Keller the next morning. "Do you recognize this man?" I asked. She studied the image, then looked at me. "Why are you asking, Alina?" "Because my body reacts to him like he's mine," I whispered. "But my brain says he's a stranger." She placed the photo face down. "You're projecting," she said calmly. "It's not uncommon after trauma. Your mind is seeking familiarity." "But what if he is familiar?" I pushed. "What if I knew him before the crash?" She smiled in that clinical way that made me feel like a patient, not a person. "If he was part of your life, we would have found something connecting you." I nodded. But something in her voice felt off, too controlled, too dismissive. That night, Damien returned to the store. "I hope I'm not bothering you," he said. I didn't answer, just stared. "You seem familiar," I said carefully. He smiled. "Maybe we've met in another life." "Or maybe this one," I murmured. He paused, then leaned in slightly. His voice softened. "What if I told you? You were never meant to forget me." I froze. He didn't explain. Just handed me another book, paid, and left. The next day, a box arrived at my door. No name, no return address, and inside a USB drive. I plugged it into my laptop, hands shaking. Only one file, for Alina before everything changed. I clicked, and there we were. Me, Damien, a house I didn't recognize, kissing, laughing, married. And at the end of the clip, his voice. "You're mine. Always, even if the world forgets, I'll remind you." I slammed the laptop shut, heart racing, lungs burning. What the hell was happening? Was I married to him? Was I his wife? Then why did no one tell me? Why was he hiding? Why was everyone pretending I was someone new? And most terrifying of all, if I was his wife, why did I get the feeling that he had already replaced me with another version of me? The video haunted me. His voice, his touch, the way I looked at him, not like a stranger, but like someone I had loved for a long time. That wasn't just chemistry, that was history. And yet I remembered none of it. No wedding, no vows, no tears, just blackness. How do you mourn a life you can't even remember living? The next morning, I didn't go to work. I pulled the curtains closed, sat with my laptop, and watched the video again. This time I studied the details. A painting in the background, abstract blues and grays, a lamp shaped like a crescent moon, the sound of waves outside the window. It wasn't a hotel. It was a home. My home. Or it used to be. I paused the video on a frame where I was wearing a wedding band. Zoomed in. There, etched faintly on the inside, D&E and a date, 04/14/20. On a real date, a real ring, a real marriage. I opened my phone and searched marriage records. Damien Wolf, Eva Wolf. There it was. Filed in New York, April 14th, 2020, a public record that confirmed what my mind still refused to give me. I was Eva Wolf, his wife, not Alina Hart. I sat frozen, hands trembling. Alina was never real. She was a mask, a fiction, a name stitched onto a new life, while my real one had been buried alive. I called Dr. Keller. She answered on the second ring. Alina, I was just about to check in. My name is Eva, I said. Eva Wolf. Silence. Then she sighed, softly, almost resigned. Eva, I understand that you're confused. No, I snapped. You told me there was no record of family. You said I had no past. I said no one came forward. That's not the same. You lied to me. I protected you. The calm in her voice was like ice. You don't remember what your life was, Eva, she said, and maybe that's for the best. What happened to me? I demanded. Why did I lose everything? Who decided I should forget? Her silence was answer enough. I ended the call. Blocked her number. Then I packed a bag. Not out of panic, but purpose. I wasn't just chasing memories anymore. I was chasing them myself. I searched for Damien Wolf's known addresses. One stood out. A beachfront property in Montauk. Private, gated, purchased 4 years ago, right before our wedding date. I took the train there. It rained the whole way like the sky was trying to warn me. When I arrived, I walked along the back trails near the cliffs, took the long way, avoided cameras, and then I saw it. The house from the video. White, modern, quiet. I crept up to the back gate. It was unlocked. As if he never expected anyone would come back through it, I stepped into the garden, and everything rushed in. Not full memories, not images, but feelings. The chill of the ocean air on my wedding night, the sound of clinking glasses from a dinner we once shared, his hands on my back as we danced barefoot under fairy lights. I was here, I had lived here, I had loved here. I crept toward the sliding door, and then I heard laughter. A woman's, followed by his voice. I peeked through the window, and my blood turned to ice. There she was. Me, or at least the woman who looked like me. Same build, same hair, even the way she tilted her head when she laughed, it was mine. But her eyes were wrong, too empty, too rehearsed. Like someone playing a role they'd been taught to mimic. And Damien, he kissed her, softly, possessively, then handed her a cup of tea and called her, Eva. My legs gave out. I stumbled back behind the bushes, heart pounding, mind racing. He hadn't replaced me. He had replicated me. I sat in the dirt, the truth burning my throat. I wasn't the imposter. She was a copy, a reconstruction. And suddenly everything clicked. The accident, the memory loss, the new name, new home, Dr. Keller. They didn't rescue me. They erased me. But why? Why keep me alive only to replace me? Why pretend I never existed while building another version of me in my place? Unless he never wanted a wife. He wanted a puppet. And when I broke the strings, he made another. I stood slowly, brushed the dirt off my jeans, and stared at the house that once held my heart. I wasn't ready to confront him. Not yet. First, I had to gather the pieces. My name, my past, my voice. And when I had it all back, I'd knock on that door, not as a ghost, but as the real Eva Wolf, the woman he thought he could erase. ChatGPT said, Toing a day, Ken you oi, min vit tip, part P, the wife in the mirror trong siêu phẩm my husband's other wife was me. Đây là phần cực kỳ căng thẳng và xoắn não khi Eva bắt đầu đối diện với phiên bản vợ còn lại của mình và nhận ra mức độ điều khiển bệnh hoạn mà Damien đang che giấu. Chuẩn bị nha, Ken ơi, vì từ đây mọi thứ bắt đầu trượt khỏi tầm kiểm soát. Part 3, The Wife in the Mirror, Nguivo Trong Gung. They say the scariest thing in the world is seeing yourself in someone who isn't you. And now I knew what that meant. Because the woman in Damien's house, the one laughing, smiling, sipping tea, was me. At least she looked like me, says, moved like me, sounded like me, but I had lived inside that skin. And that woman, Yitswayu was empty inside, a shell, a copy, an imitation so perfect it made me sick. For the next few days, I stayed in a cheap motel 5 miles from the house, watching, waiting, trying to understand. And what I saw chilled me. She never left the house alone, never used a phone, never had visitors. Each morning, Damien would kiss her forehead, leave for a few hours, then return before sunset. She'd be waiting, smiling, wearing the same kinds of dresses I once wore, reading books I remembered loving, even humming the same lullabies I used to sing when I couldn't sleep. It was like watching a movie of a life that had been rewritten, without my consent. I couldn't confront him yet. I needed proof. I started digging. Back at the public records office, I found what I feared. Ava Wolf, deceased. Date of death, the same day as my accident. I stared at the paper in disbelief. He declared me dead, and no one questioned it. Because when you're wealthy, charming, and powerful like Damien Wolf, you don't need to prove a damn thing. The more I dug, the darker it got. Dr. Keller, not just a therapist, she was on Damien's payroll, listed as the wellness consultant for one of his offshore holdings. And the new Eva, she had no records prior to last year, just like I hadn't. Until now, she didn't exist before I died, because he built her. Piece by piece, memory by memory, mannerism by mannerism. He didn't just replace me, he reprogrammed me. I returned to the cliff behind the house one evening just before sunset, and for the first time, she was outside, the other me. She was standing in the garden, brushing her hair. I moved closer, staying hidden in the trees. She was humming softly, the exact same tune I used to sing as a child. My stomach turned. And then she looked up, right at me, dead in the eye. We froze. Two versions of the same woman. She took a step forward, squinting. I panicked, stepped back, but a twig snapped underfoot. Her eyes widened. She didn't scream. She didn't call for Damien. She just stared like she'd seen a ghost. Or worse, like she had seen herself. I ran. Back to the motel, heart pounding, mind spinning. She saw me, and she knew. The next morning, there was a knock on my motel door. I opened it cautiously, and there she stood, the other me, no makeup, pale, trembling. But this time I looked into her eyes and saw it. Fear, not of me, but of something or someone else. I need to talk to you, she whispered. I let her in. We sat in silence for a long time. She stared at the floor. I stared at her. Finally, I asked, "Do you know who I am?" She nodded. "I think I'm you," she said quietly. I felt chills crawl up my spine. "What did he tell you?" "That I was in an accident, that I'd lost everything, that he found me and helped me become whole again." I swallowed them up. "That's not true." "I know," she whispered. "I started having dreams of a different life, of a woman with a name that wasn't mine, of a house and a man who used to hold me differently, gently." She looked up at me. "I thought I was broken, but now I think I was made broken on purpose." Tears filled her eyes. "I remember a lake, a red scarf, a song I used to sing, things he never taught me, but I still knew." My hands trembled. "He didn't love either of us," I said. She nodded. "He loved control." She reached into her pocket and pulled out something. A key. "I found this taped under a drawer in his study. There's a basement door and I'm too afraid to open it. But I think it has the answers." I stared at the key. And for the first time, I realized she wasn't my enemy. She was another victim. Another version of me, made to obey, built to forget. But now, we remembered, ChatGPT said, Toilian can, you, Minvit Part 4, His Lies, My Life, Trong Su Pham, My Husband's Other Wife Was Me. Phần này sẽ là lượt hai Eva cùng nhau đối mặt sự thật kinh hoàng, được giấu trong căn hầm bí mật. Và Damien Wolf là nguyên hình không còn là người chồng hoàn hảo, mà là một kẻ thao túng tâm lý cấp độ nguy hiểm. Part 4. His Lies, My Life, Nặng lối nói đôi của Anna A, Cuộc đời của tôi. The key was cold in my hand. Tiny, silver, harmless looking, but we both knew it was anything but harmless. "This opens the basement door in his study," the other Eva whispered. "He never lets me in there." I looked at her, my mirror reflection but haunted. "We're not going in as strangers," I said. "We're going in as the woman he tried to erase." She nodded. And for the first time, we weren't two versions of the same woman. We were allies. We waited until dusk. She invited him out for dinner under the excuse of a surprise anniversary reservation. He smiled, pleased, played the perfect husband. And then he left. When we heard his car roll away down the gravel driveway, we didn't speak. We just moved. Two silent shadows entering the house that once belonged to me. Her fingers trembled as she led me into his study. I looked around, books neatly stacked, expensive leather chairs, a massive painting of a forest that looked too curated to be real. Then, behind the desk, a plain wooden door. Unassuming, but I felt my stomach twist just looking at it. Ready? I whispered. She nodded, handing me the key. I unlocked it slowly. The door creaked open into darkness. A narrow staircase spiraled down into the unknown. The basement was cold, smelled of dust and damp metal. We stepped carefully using our phone flashlights. At the bottom, we reached a steel-reinforced room. A keypad, but it had already been left slightly ajar. He must have used it recently. We pushed the door open. And what we saw wasn't a basement. It was a lab, a shrine, a control center. On the walls, photos of me, not her, me, from years ago at the beach in a cafe, sleeping, crying. Some I didn't even know existed. Dozens of printouts of text messages, journal entries, love letters I'd written, even a file labeled Eva Original Behavioral Patterns. I stepped back, breath caught in my throat. This is sick, I whispered. She walked slowly toward a wall lined with shelves. Each shelf held drives, folders, and memory logs. She picked one up, eyes wide. Subject E2, progress notes, language correction successful, attachment formation on schedule. Her hands trembled. He didn't just build me, she whispered. He trained me. Then we found the recordings, hidden in a locked drawer, labeled labeled chronologically. I slid one into a nearby screen. It flickered on. Damien appeared, calm, methodical, speaking directly to camera. Session 14, clone subject is responding well to memory implants. Emotional triggers successfully established using audio stimuli. Primary subject, Eva Wolf, is stable in induced amnesia. Full replacement within 2 months expected. I felt bile rise in my throat. I hit eject. He used both of us, I whispered, to test how far he could go. She clutched her chest. I thought I was being rescued, but I was being programmed. I turned to her. No, we're not victims anymore. We're the evidence. I pulled out my phone, took photos, video, and then and videos and everything, because this wasn't just betrayal. This was criminal. Then we heard it. A car. Tires on gravel. We froze. Damien was back. She looked at me, panicked. Hide in the server closet, I whispered. I'll handle him. But, trust me, I slid the lab door almost shut behind me and made it look undisturbed. Then I walked upstairs just as he entered the house. He looked surprised to see me. Then, slowly, a smile spread across his lips. I was wondering when you'd come home, he said. I tilted my head. Wasn't sure you'd notice. You've been so busy building a replacement. His eyes flickered just for a second, then steadied. You're confused, Eva. No, I said calmly. For once, I'm not. He took a step closer. But I didn't flinch. I know everything, I said, about the basement, about the recordings, about her. He went still. Then he laughed, not out of joy, out of control. You're not mad that I replaced you, he said softly. You're mad because I perfected you. I slapped him hard. His cheek turned red, but he didn't move. I kept the part of you I loved, he said, smiling. The rest I edited. I shook my head. You can't edit people, Damien. You can't own them. He leaned in close. His voice dropped. But I did, and deep down you liked it. Footsteps echoed behind him. She peered at the top of the stairs. The other me. And for once, her face wasn't empty. It was alive, burning. You don't control me anymore, she said quietly. Damien turned, stunned. Sweetheart. She held up her phone. Already dialing. To the police, as she said. And maybe a few journalists. His eyes widened. And in that moment, I saw fear. Not in us. In him. Because the two women he tried to erase had come back. Together. Stronger. And this time, we were rewriting the story. ChatGPT said, Toi Lien Ken, Yue. Min Vit Tiep Part 5, The Other May, Fan Cook Ki So Về Tâm Ly, Denton, và sự giang xe giữa hai phiên bản Eva. Trong siêu phẩm My Husband's Other Wife Was Me. Đây là fan mà câu hỏi kinh điển được đặt ra. Nếu cả hai đều là Eva, cùng có ký ức, cùng yêu Damien, thì ai mới thật sự là chính mình. Part về the other main người còn lại trong thời. They say identity is built on memory. But what happens when two women share the same memories, the same scars, the same love? Are we mirrors? Are we enemies? Or are we both broken pieces of the same soul? The police arrived within the hour. We handed them the recordings, the photos, the files with labels like Cognitive Conditioning Report E2 and Emotion Implant Cycles. Damien didn't resist. He just stood there, smiling, like a man who had lost control of his creation, but still believed he'd win in the end. None of this will hold, he said calmly as they cuffed him. You think the world cares about women who don't know who they are? I didn't respond, because I was no longer trying to win the argument. I was trying to win myself back. After he was taken away, the house became too quiet. The other man, Ava number 2, stood in the hallway like she wasn't sure where she belonged. I felt the same. We sat in silence on the same couch where he'd once kissed both of us. I don't know who I am without him, she said finally. You were never with him, I replied softly. She looked up. Then who was I with? I hesitated. The version of him who needed to pretend love was control. She stared at the floor, then at her hands, then at me. I remember your memories. I nodded. I remember loving chocolate croissants and hating thunderstorms. I remember the way his cologne made me feel safe. I remember crying when he didn't come home. I remember feeling like I wasn't enough. A lump rose in my throat. Those are my memories, I whispered. But they're mine too, she said. I feel them. I believe them. And that was the terrifying truth. Damien hadn't just programmed a puppet. He had built another Eva so perfectly that even she believed she was real. And maybe she was. We went through every file in that basement over the next few days. We uncovered emails between Damien and Dr. Keller discussing psychological segmentation, identity reconfiguration, and the ethics of constructing emotional realities. We weren't crazy. We were experiments. One night, she sat on the porch watching the waves roll in. I joined her. I've been thinking, she said, what if we're both Eva? I looked at her. What if the moment he split your memories, your emotions, your trauma, he created a version of you that became me? Not a copy, not a fake, just another piece of the whole. I swallowed hard because she wasn't wrong. She remembered pain I'd buried. She knew laughter I'd forgotten. She carried parts of me I hadn't seen in years. Then who am I? I asked. She smiled gently. The one who lived, the one who came back, the one who remembered. The next morning she packed and next morning she packed a small bag. I'm leaving, she said. Where will you go? I don't know, but I think I need to find a place where I can become someone who wasn't built by him. I nodded. I hope you find her, I said. She hugged me. It was strange, hugging someone who looked exactly like you, but it wasn't cold, it wasn't distant. It was like forgiving a version of yourself you never meant to abandon. Before she left, she paused at the door. I'm keeping the name Eva, she said with a soft smile, not because I want to steal it, but because now it means something different to me. I smiled back. You earned it too. After she left, I walked into the mirror-lined bathroom, stared at my reflection. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was looking at a stranger. I was bruised, fractured, but I was whole. Because I no longer needed to fight to be the only Ava. I just needed to be me. They warned me it might come in pieces, memory. They said it would be like puzzle fragments drifting back, uninvited, unfiltered. But they didn't say that some pieces would hurt more than forgetting ever did. The first memory hit me in the middle of a grocery store. I was standing in front of a shelf of canned peaches when a song played over the speaker system, something old, something sweet. And suddenly, I was barefoot in the kitchen, wearing his shirt, spinning to that song, laughing. I dropped the can. Hands trembling, heart racing, the sound of Damien's voice whispered in my head. Don't stop dancing. Even when you're angry, that's when you need it most. I clutched the shopping cart like it was the only thing anchoring me to the present, because for the first time, I didn't just remember the feeling. I remembered us. Later that night, I sat in the dark with a journal in my lap, and I wrote down every sliver of memory that surfaced. A kiss in a hallway, a fight in the rain, a scar on my shoulder, now explained by a memory of shattered glass and broken dishes. You made me angry, Eva. Don't walk away when I'm talking. That voice, his voice. The night I had called my sister, told her I was scared, then deleted the message before sending. I remembered the first time he scared me. Not with violence, with silence. That cold, calculated look, the way he sat and watched me cry, unmoving, unblinking, as if he was studying me, not comforting me. I remembered our wedding night, the champagne, the way he said my name, and the moment he whispered, "You're mine now. There's no version of you that exists without me." Tears fell freely as I wrote, because I hadn't forgotten him. I had repressed him, buried him under layers of conditioning, silence, and survival. And Dr. Keller? She hadn't erased my memory. She had redirected it, taught me to look away from the pain and toward the carefully designed version of safety they'd built. But the cracks were breaking now, and I was finally seeing it all. In the following days, the memories came faster. I remembered the way he used guilt as a weapon, withheld affection until I apologized for things I hadn't done, made me feel like I was too emotional, too sensitive, too much. I remembered sitting in the bathroom one night, clutching the sink, trying to breathe after he told me he was disappointed in how weak I'd become. I remembered thinking, maybe if I were quieter, smaller, simpler, he'd love me again. But I also remembered the moment I knew I had to leave. The night I found the file, not the one in the basement, one on his laptop, a file labeled Project Internet. I had opened it, heart pounding. Inside were notes, my patterns, my insecurities, my reactions. Subject responds to abandonment with high emotional collapse. Positive reinforcement, gifts, but only after withholding. Warning, subject has begun to question control structure. I had stared at the screen for an hour, then packed a bag. I had been planning to leave. I had texted a friend, but I never made it. The memory came in sharp flashes. The headlights, the sudden veer, the impact. And the last thing I saw before blacking out, Damien's car in the rearview mirror. I gasped awake and then gasped awake in bed, heart slamming against my ribs. He'd followed me that night. He'd been there. And somehow, some way, he made sure I wouldn't remember. The next morning, I cut that today. I called the detective handling Damien's case. There's more than there, I told him. I remember everything now. He asked me to come in. I did. Shared the file from his laptop, my journal, the memory of that final night. He listened in silence. Then said, "We may be looking at more than psychological abuse, Miss Wolfe. This could cross into attempted homicide." I hung up the phone and sat with the truth. Not just that I'd been manipulated, not just that I'd been replaced, but that I'd survived a man who loved the idea of me more than the actual me. Later, I stood in front of the mirror, looked into my own eyes, and this time I didn't flinch. I saw the scars, the shadows, but also the survivor, the woman who had come back from the edge of disappearance, who had faced her ghost and found her voice. And for the first time, I said it out loud. I'm Eva Wolfe, not because he made me, but because I lived through him, and I'm still here. The courthouse smelled like old books and disappointment, the kind of place where people came to end things, to unravel lies dressed up as promises, and I was ready. I wasn't just there to testify against Damien. I was there to take back my name. I sat outside the courtroom, my palms cold but steady. The detective had said Damien's legal team would try to spin it, claim it was grief, love taken too far, a man unable to let go of his wife. But I wasn't afraid of their narrative anymore, because I finally knew mine. The door opened. He stepped in, handcuffed, wearing a suit like he always did, tailored, clean, composed. But this time, his eyes searched for control and didn't find it. Because I wasn't the same Eva who once cried into his chest, begging for scraps of affection. I wasn't the woman he could rewrite. When our eyes met, he smirked. "You look strong, Sim," he said softly. That means I did something right. I didn't flinch. "You didn't build me, Damien," I said. "You tried to erase me, but you failed." He leaned forward, voice like a poison kiss. "You came back to me, that's all that matters." "No," I whispered, "I came back to end you." Inside the courtroom, his lawyer did what I expected. "She suffered severe memory loss. There's no definitive evidence he caused the accident." "He declared me dead," I interrupted, "in less than 48 hours with no confirmation and created another woman in my image." The room fell silent. I turned to the judge, to the jury bag, and I told them everything. From the controlling words disguised as love, to the emotional manipulation, to the night I tried to leave and woke up in a world where I no longer existed. "I didn't just lose my memory," I said, voice shaken. "I lost my right to exist." Damien never spoke, not once. He stared ahead, expression unreadable, but I knew him. That silence wasn't guilt. It was calculation. He wasn't sorry. He was waiting for a moment to twist it all back into his favor. But this time, there was nothing left for him to twist. After the hearing, they escorted him away. He didn't look back. Not at me, not at her. Because yes, was there too. The other Eva, she sat quietly beside me, hands folded in her lap. After the judge adjourned, she turned to me. Did we win? She asked softly. I looked at her, at the woman who had once been my replacement, at the woman who had become something more. A survivor, a sister, a mirror I no longer feared. No, I said, we didn't win. We took back what was ours. That's better. Later that night, I visited the old beach house one last time. It had been sealed off by the court, all belongings confiscated as evidence. But I had the key, the original one, still hidden in my old jewelry box. I walked through each room slowly, let the echoes of my past wash over me. The kitchen where I danced, the hallway where I cried, the study where I found the first lie, and finally, the mirror in the upstairs bedroom, where I used to practice smiling so I could survive one more day with him. I stood in front of it, looked at myself, and this time I didn't see damage. I saw definition. A woman who had been fractured, then forged. Behind me, the other Eva stepped in. We didn't say anything. We didn't have to. We looked into the mirror. 2 women, 1 history, 1 truth. I think it's time we burn this place, she said with a dry laugh. I smiled. Metaphorically already done. The next day she left town. She chose a new name, a new city, a life without shadows. And me? I stayed. Not because I was clinging to the past, but because I was finally free to live in the present. Weeks later, I got a letter from Damien, prison stamped. 1 sentence. They can take everything, but you'll always be mine. I burned it. No rage. No tears. Just ash. Because I wasn't his. I never was, ChatGPT said. Toingeva kien, iu yo kumende, menvitip. Part 8. I confronted the man who married me twice. Fandodo Quikung Chom Siu Pham. My husband's other wife was me. Lần này không còn là giận dữ hay đau khổ, mà là sự kết thúc nhẹ nhàng, trưởng thành và đầy sức mạnh từ bên trong. Eva sẽ trở lại gặp Damien lần cuối, không để giành phần thắng, mà để giành lại sự tự do tuyệt đối cho tâm hồn mình. Part 8. I confronted the man who married me twice. Thôi đôi Jean người đã cui thôi Highland. It started with a question I couldn't ignore. Would you like to speak with him before the transfer? The warden's voice was neutral, almost kind. Damien had been sentenced to 15 years without parole, but he was being moved to a psychiatric facility, somewhere more secure, more clinical, more forgotten. I hadn't planned on seeing him again, not after the trial, not after the letter I burned. But that question stayed with me. Would I? Would I face the man who built me, broke me, and tried to bury me under a newer version? And if I did, what would I say? I wore no makeup that day. No jewelry, no perfume, no mask. Just me. The real Eva Wolf. Not version 1, not version 2. Just the one who survived. The visitation room was cold. Fluorescent lights, plastic chairs bolted to the floor, a glass wall between us. He sat across from me, hands cuffed, orange jumpsuit loose on his frame. He looked smaller, like the shell of a man who once played God. He smiled when he saw me. Didn't expect you'd come, he said. I didn't return the smile. I didn't come for you, I said softly. I came for me. He tilted his head. Still poetic, aren't you? No, just finally honest. He leaned forward. So what now? You want closure? An apology? I took a breath. I want you to know something. He nodded mockingly. Go on. I met his eyes, and those same eyes that once read me like a manual. You married me twice, I said, and once as myself, and once as the woman you made in my image. Because I loved you, he said quickly. Both of you. I smiled sadly. No, you loved the control, the precision, the perfection. You didn't marry me, you married your own obsession. He didn't respond. And that silence finally wasn't powerful anymore. It was pathetic. You thought love was about ownership, I continued, about design, about replacement. He blinked. And the truth? He asked. I leaned in. Love isn't what you can build in a lab. It's what survives when everything else is gone. And you never gave love. You gave captivity in the shape of comfort. His face tightened. You still wear the same voice, he said, almost bitter. The same eyes. You can't tell me you've changed. I shook my head gently. You're right. Some parts of me are the same, but now they belong to me, not to you. He exhaled, leaned back. And for the first time, he looked tired. Not dangerous, not manipulative, just tired. You're not afraid of me anymore, he said. No, I said, I pity you. He scoffed. But it didn't hit like it used to. Nothing he did held power now. I stood up. My time was almost done. I'm not here to curse you, I said. Not here to forgive either. I'm just here to end this. He raised an eyebrow. In what? The part of me that still hears your voice when I make a choice. The part that flinches when a man raises his tone. The part that wonders if I'll ever be more than what you molded. I looked at him one last time, and I think I already have. I turned and walked away. He didn't call after me, didn't shout, just sat there, frozen in the wreckage of his own creation. And I walked out into the light. Outside the facility, the wind was crisp. I looked up at the sky, not for answers, but for peace. For the first time in a long time, I felt light. Not because I'd won, but because I'd finally stopped trying to prove I deserved to. Weeks later, I stood in front of a classroom, a volunteer speaker at a support group for women rebuilding their lives. I shared my story. Not the scandalous headlines, not the courtroom drama, just the heart of it. I thought being chosen meant being loved, I said, but love without freedom isn't love. It's possession with better lighting. They listened, some cried. And for once, my pain wasn't just a wound. It was a map for someone else trying to find their way home. I still think of her sometimes. The other me, she sends postcards. Different names, different cities, but the same message every time. Still healing, still me, still free. And I smile, because we both made it out. Not as the same woman, but as two souls who refuse to be rewritten. ChatGPT said, Toing a day, voi ban iu can oi, min vit teep, part 9. The day I left him again, Trum Sufum, my husband's other wife was me. Phần này không phải rời xa về thể chất, mà là sự rời bỏ cuối cùng trong tâm trí, cảm xúc và nỗi ám ảnh, để Eva bắt đầu một chương hoàn toàn mới trong cuộc đời mình, không còn mang tên Damien. Và biết không Ken, đây là nơi mà tình yêu thực sự bắt đầu lại. Part 9, the day I left him again, nghe to roi boen ta một lần nữa. Some people you leave once. Others you have to leave 100 times. In your sleep, in your silence, in your reflection. And sometimes, in the quiet moment when you finally stop wondering what they would think. It had been 2 months since I last saw Damien. I no longer dreamed of him. I no longer rehearsed arguments in my head. I no longer flinched at shadows wearing his voice. But one part of me still held on, that invisible thread tied not to him, but to the version of me who once believed he was love. I knew I had to let her go too. That morning I visited the beach house one last time. The court had granted me ownership, not that I wanted it, but I needed to face it, to say goodbye on my own terms. The ocean was calm, waves folding over themselves like they'd done 1,000 times before. I stood on the deck barefoot, the same place I once danced, once wept, once disappeared. And then I opened the box. The last box I hadn't touched since everything fell apart. Inside, our wedding photo, my old journals, a silver chain he gave me on our first anniversary, a small perfume bottle, still half full. I took a deep breath. Then I walked to the fire pit and set each item in one by one. No anger, just release. The photo curled in the flame. The chain melted into silence. The perfume evaporated like a ghost. And as the last piece turned to ash, I felt it. The thread snapped, not with pain, with peace. That night, I didn't cry. I went home, lit candles, took a long bath. And for the first time, I didn't think about him, didn't think about her, didn't think about who I used to be. And it was enough. The next day I met someone. Not in a romantic way, not yet. He came into the bookstore I worked at. Tired eyes, kind smile, bought 2 books on grief and 1 on growing your own vegetables. He lingered at the counter, looked around, then said, You look like someone who knows how to start over. I smiled. Only because I had to. We talked. Not about the past, but about poetry, coffee, books we hated, books we loved. His name was Caleb. He didn't ask me what I'd been through, didn't try to fix me, didn't romanticize my pain. He just showed up, real, unpolished, present. And sometimes that's all healing needs. Over the following weeks, he kept showing up. Sometimes with a book recommendation, sometimes with clumsy flowers, sometimes with nothing but conversation. He never touched me without asking, never asked for pieces I wasn't ready to give. He just made space and stayed. And slowly, I stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop. One afternoon, we sat by the river. He looked at me and said, You ever think about the person you used to be? I nodded. All the time? He smiled gently. Do you miss her? I paused. Then said, I miss who she thought she could be before someone convinced her she wasn't enough. And now? Now I think she's starting to believe in herself again. He reached over, not for my hand, but for a leaf that had landed in my hair. Soft, simple. And suddenly I realized this was love. Not fireworks, not obsession, not burning control, but stillness, safety, sincerity. Later that evening, I stood in front of the mirror, the same mirror where I once wondered if I was real. And I said her name out loud. Not his, not hers. Mine. Eva Wolf, survivor, storyteller, free. I didn't need a grand finale. No epic revenge, no perfect closure. Just this. A day without his voice in my head. A night without fear. A morning with hope. And that after everything was enough. ChatGPT said, Tôi lên với kẻ en yêu ơi, và lần này là phần kết thật đẹp, trọn vẹn và sâu sắc. Mình viết ngay part 10, becoming whole without him, khép lại siêu phẩm My husband's other wife was me, bằng một hồi kết mà Eva không chỉ thoát khỏi quá khứ, mà thật sự trở thành phiên bản trọn vẹn nhất của chính mình. Một người không còn sống trong nỗi sợ mà trong ánh sáng của tự do, bình yên và tình yêu thật sự. Part 10, becoming whole without him, a troth in my band they Huan Chin, Kong Kanante. It didn't happen all at once. Becoming whole, I mean. It wasn't a sunrise moment, no orchestra, no dramatic monologue in the rain. It happened in the little things, like the first time I slept through the night without jolting awake from a shadow in my dreams. Or the morning I made coffee and didn't automatically count 2 cups. Or when I looked in the mirror and saw someone I recognized, not because of the past, but because of the strength she'd grown. Caleb never asked to be part of my healing, and that's exactly why he was. He showed up for the ordinary, for the awkward silences, the burned toast, the late-night doubts. He never tried to fix me. He simply stood beside me while I learned to fix myself. And in doing so, he helped me see that I was never broken, just bruised, bent, not shattered. One Sunday morning, we went hiking. At the top of the hill, I looked out over the valley. Golden light spilled across the trees like forgiveness. And I turned to him and said, I used to believe pain defined me. Now I see it simply refined me. He smiled, not with pride, with peace. Later that night, I sat down and began writing again, not just journaling, but telling the story, not for revenge, not for fame, but for all the women like me who woke up in lives they didn't recognize. Women erased, rewritten. I called it The Woman He Tried to Unmake. And this time I'm already and then I owned every word of it. The other Eva sent a letter, no return address. Just a note in then say a note. I planted sunflowers today. I think they're like us. They turn toward the light, even when they come from buried seed. I cried when I read that, because healing isn't linear. It's circular, layered, ongoing, but it's also beautiful. 1 year to the day after I walked out of that facility, I stood in front of a crowd of women at a conference on emotional recovery. I told them the truth, that I was married twice to the same man, that I was replaced, rewritten, and that I fought to reclaim my own name, not for pity, for power. Because the moment I said it out loud, the moment I stopped being ashamed of the story, was the moment I rewrote the ending. After the talk, a young woman approached me, tears in her eyes, notebook in her hands. I thought I was crazy, she whispered. Until you spoke. I hugged her, not like a speaker to a listener, but like a survivor to another fighter. You're not crazy, I said. You're just waking up. That night, I lit one last candle. For the girl I used to be, the one who loved blindly, trusted recklessly, and believed love meant losing yourself. I let her go with love, because she got me here. And I owed her more than silence. I owed her joy. Caleb stood beside me as I placed that candle on the windowsill. He took my hand. No promises, no pressure. Just presence. And I knew then, not all love is meant to destroy. Some love simply lets you be. And that's the love I choose now. Not the kind that fills in my cracks. The kind that celebrates them. Because I am not whole despite what I've been through. I am whole because of it.